Good afternoon, Chair Gomez.
Good afternoon.
If there aren't any members of the public joining today's meeting, I would like to direct you to the public testimony instructions that are on the screen. When the item that you wish to speak on is introduced, please go ahead and push the raise hand button that's located at the bottom of your Zoom screen, or if you're dialing in via telephone, you can go ahead and press *9 to indicate that you wish to speak on a specific item. And our planning and policy committee meeting will begin shortly.
Marvis, are we still waiting for a quorum?
We're waiting for a quorum, waiting for at least one more member to join.
Okay, okay.
That, Member Shu will be joining shortly by phone.
Thank you, Marvis.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. So we can ask council if there's a way to proceed and then ratify actions when the other board members are able to join. If member Shu is going to be joining shortly, or we could
roll
wait,
call?
whatever your preference, Chair Gomez.
Yeah, why don't we go ahead, I'll go ahead and ask our council for advice on how to proceed and amend it as needed.
Sure, thank you, Madam Chair. We can proceed with making recommendations with the members present. And then when we do achieve quorum, we can go back and vote on it with the quorum.
Okay, then we will go ahead and do that. I'll call the meeting to order. Do we need to take roll call at this moment?
Yes, we should.
If I may, council, please feel free to correct me if we can't do this. Is it possible to take any non-agenda public comment at this time so that they can be heard?
Typically, I would have recommended that we take non-agenda public comment or actions that do not require a vote, but I think procedurally we're better off moving first with that first item on the agenda, which is the approval of the teleconferencing. So if we want, we can do teleconferencing and then go to the items that do not require a vote or for non-agenda public comment, and then go to items requiring a vote from the group. Would that work?
Yeah, that works. So we'll go ahead and I'll ask the clerk for roll call for the moment.
Okay, thank you, Chair Gomez. Member Bush, Member Sanchez, Member Shu, Vice Chair Medina,
Here.
Chair Gomez.
Here. So I'll ask the clerk to proceed with next item, which is opening up that discussion on the resolution related to holding of the teleconference meeting without us taking a vote until we get full quorum. Well, until we get quorum, correct?
I think we would still ask for the aye votes to make a recommendation to approve, and then we will
Okay.
actually approve when we achieve quorum.
Okay. Then let's go ahead and move forward with that item.
So this item, Madam Chair, is the adoption of a resolution relating to the holding of a teleconference meeting. This is similar to what the governing board has adopted at its prior meetings due to the still in existence, the emergency order at the state level and the county level, and the recommendations for continued social distancing. The board is able to adopt a resolution in order to allow it the meeting to go forward today remotely. And so that's what this resolution is designed to do.
Got it. Okay, do we need to have public discussion at the moment or just member discussion, preliminary recommendation vote?
Well, Well, every item should also include a public discussion opportunity.
Yeah. I just want to make sure. So we are taking public discussion as we're managing this meeting without quorum.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So I will ask the clerk to provide the public testimony instructions.
Thank you, Chair Gomez. I would ask any member of the public that wishes to speak on this item to please use the instructions that are on the screen. You may also indicate that you wish to speak on this item by using the raise hand feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen or by pressing *9 now.
Are there anybody from the public wishing to address the members on this item?
Yes, Yes, Chair Gomez, we have one member of the public that wishes to address the board on this item, John Botteroff. You will have 3 minutes to address the board on this item. Please begin by stating your name for the record, and please be sure to self-regulate your time. I would also ask that you mute your live stream prior to speaking. It looks like we actually have 2 members. So first we'll have John Botteroff and then Suzanne Hume.
Go ahead, John.
Yes, thank you so much. Good afternoon. My name is John Bodorf with cleanearthforkids.org. We ask you to please take action to not allow wood-burning fireplaces in new construction and implement programs and incentives to remove existing wood-burning fireplaces and stoves throughout the county.
Member, I'm sorry.
John,
Yes.
let
Yes.
me just interrupt you for a second. This is an item related to us holding the teleconference meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought this was
Or-
non-agenda. I'm sorry. I apologize.
No, not yet. Well, I don't even know if we have non-agenda public comment in general, but this is in relation to teleconference.
Gotcha. Well, my comment would be absolutely in favor of the telecommunications.
Yes, less commuting, less.
Thank you so much.
You got it. Thank you so much for supporting it. Anybody else on this item?
And if I may, just for the record, we will have an opportunity for non-agenda public comment prior to the adjournment of the meeting.
Thank you.
I would also like to note for the record that member Shu has joined. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, because of technology, I'm unable to promote him to a panelist, but he can hear and he can participate.
Thank you, Mark. And it does show that he's with us as well on the phone. So we now have quorum, just for the record, as well. Any other members of the public wishing to address us related to the teleconference meeting, us holding our meeting, teleconference today?
There are no additional members of the public wishing to address the board. Oh, I'm sorry, we have one member of the public, David R. If you wish to address the board on the adoption of the resolution relating to the holding of the teleconference meeting, please go ahead and begin by stating your name for the record. You will have 3 minutes to address the board on this item. You may begin.
I think being online is a lot easier for me, especially because I'm a student and not having to go directly to a meeting makes it a lot easier for people in the community and students as well to understand more about their own community and make impactful decisions that have a chance to really make a change. And not everyone's always available. People have jobs that they have to go to, and having the chance to just do it online makes it a lot more applicable for these kind of communities, this kind of area, and it's a lot less commuting, which makes it a lot easier.
Thank you for your comments. Next, we have Suzanne Hume.
Hi, and thank you so much. My name is Suzanne Hume. I'm the Educational Director and founder of CleanEarthForKids.org, and clean air saves lives. It is so important that we have the opportunity to have these virtual meetings, and we just appreciate everything that you can do to make these accessible to the public. And it's just so important. As the speaker said before, we need access. The public needs to have the opportunity to make comments, and having these online allows this access. So thank you again for working so hard to do that. Thanks again.
Thank you for your comments. That concludes public testimony on this item.
Thank you. And with that, I'll open it up for committee members' comments on this item as well. And yeah, so are there any Vice Chair Medina?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, I would like to, since we have quorum now, to propose that we adopt that resolution. And I do have a question. If we, or at some point we will go to in-person meetings, will there still be the capability for people from the public to use the virtual method to address the board even after we are in person?
Yes, Vice Chair Medina, that relates actually to our next item on the agenda. But yes, that's absolutely our intent, is to be able to allow the hybrid meetings for the public. It would be the board members that would be required to be in person after the expiration of the emergency orders at the end of February, next week.
Okay, well then I'll move that we adopt this measure. Thank you.
Thank you, member. Is there any other comments from committee members? Member Shu, any comments that you might have? Or a possible second? I'll go ahead and I can second the motion. Yes. Okay, I'll be happy to second the motion to this, so we are allowed to have today's meeting. I don't know if Member Shu has any remarks on this item, but if not, I'll go ahead and call for a vote.
Thank you, Chair Gomez. Member Bush, Member Sanchez, Member Shu. Member Shu, you're muted. You're unmuted, but I can't hear you.
Aye.
Thank you. Vice Chair Medina,
Aye.
Chair Gomez.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion adopts a resolution entitled Resolution Authorizing Continuance of Teleconference Public Meetings pursuant to Government Code Section 54953 subsection E, with members Bush and Sanchez absent. That motion passes with all other committee members voting aye, who are present and voting aye.
Thank you. So with that, we can proceed. Thank you, everyone. So now we'll go ahead and take the next item, which is a discussion of our dates, time, and location for our meetings of the Planning and Policy Committee for 2023.
Thank you,
Chair,
Chair Gomez. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
go ahead. Provide a public testimony instructions for those members of the public that might want to speak on this item. Any member of the public that wishes to address the board on this item, please indicate that you would like to do so now using the instructions on the screen. You may indicate that you wish to speak by using the raise hand feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen or by pressing *9 now.
And while we wait for that, we will go ahead and hear from staff on this item. Is there recommendations?
Yeah, I was going to recommend that the committee meet on the months opposite the governing board meetings. And so as you'll recall, last year, the governing board voted to meet roughly every other month. So the next scheduled meeting of the governing board is coming up on March 9th. then they'll be meeting in May, June, August, October, and December. And so my recommendation was going to be that this committee meet in the months opposite, assuming that there is business before the committee. And so that would put the next meeting of this committee in April. And then potentially July, September, and November. And so again, it would be subject to the work of the committee. And obviously there could be more meetings, there could be fewer. But I was thinking it would be helpful to get dates in the calendar now so that for your planning purposes and for ours, we could get those calendared today. In terms of the location, my suggestion would be that we meet at the APCD offices located in Scripps Ranch. I do acknowledge the travel time associated with that. And again, as I mentioned in the previous item, our goal is to be able to provide a hybrid meeting for members of the public if they did not wish to attend in person. And so we would use OWL technology for that. I don't know if you've participated on meetings with those, but our clerk of the board and our IT folks have been working to make sure that we would be able to have that hybrid ability in place in our conference room here at the APCD offices. And so I don't know if the committee wants to identify particular dates. If we were to stick to, the governing board meeting was previously meeting every month on the second Thursday in the afternoon. If that is still a good general day for people, we could stick to that. I know that member Sanchez at one point expressed a preference for Friday afternoons. She was not able to attend today, but that's just another potential suggestion for you. And and then I would suggest that you have the discussion regarding location and whether that seems to be appropriate.
Thank you for that. Is there any public comment for this item that has come up?
Thank you, Chair. I see no hands raised, so there are no members of the public wishing to address the board on this item.
Okay. Any comments from colleagues on this item?
Chair, I actually don't have a problem in moving it to Friday. We could even just move one to Friday, the next one, to see if the member Sanchez would be able to join us then, and then we can all decide if we keep it on Thursdays or Fridays. I will not be, the date, would it be on the fourth week or?
Would it be, it feels like being that we only have 3 of the members and 2 are missing, it's almost 50-50, right? And 2 of the members we all have busy schedules. So it worries me that we might land on a date that might not work for everybody, and then we're dealing with the whole quorum issue again.
Yeah.
Is this something that we can, well, one thing, do we agree? I think I feel comfortable agreeing to meeting at least every other month, off months, the month before the board meeting. I feel comfortable saying yes to that and making that into a motion if need be in terms of the date and the time and even the location. Should we discuss? I don't know how we do this.
I would ask council in terms of, for Brown Act purposes, as long as we are, like for this meeting, for example, we complied with Brown Act requirements to put the notice out more than 72 hours in advance. I would assume that the committee could continue to do that if it wanted to leave the dates and times open for right now and location. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. We're not required to adopt a calendar with the exact meeting date and time. So as long as we comply with the Brown Act for future meetings, I think we're okay. Which means just
Okay.
notifying the public at least 72 hours in advance.
And then for council, I'm sure that maybe staff might need a little bit more direction to try to solidify a date of our next meeting, or if we can land on a meeting virtual every other month. Can that be something that staff can follow up with the members over Doodle or something like that offline? And then we make it public?
I would recommend that we proceed the way that I think was done this time, where staff can reach out to the members individually, so that we do not have like a serial meeting, even though the topic here is, a little
Date, yeah.
not exactly controversial. It still is better to follow Brown Act requirements. So just have staff reach out to the members individually to check availability and find a time that works. And then we could even continue this item to that next meeting if you did want to establish a schedule more routinely that's established.
Mhm. Yeah, it feels like that might be the direction that we go with, at least for today, right? Unless
Right.
member Shu or member Medina, if you all feel differently, I'm open to hearing from both of you.
Hello, this is member Shu. I'll say that we table it, and in the meantime, we can survey those committee members to see what's the best time, and then we could come back. But I agreed every other month should be fine.
Okay. Okay. So to be continued. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so no motion is needed for this item, correct?
Could I just correct? I think we're gonna table this and continue it. If I could just get the sense of the members that are here in terms of the location and your desire to ensure that there's hybrid meetings. That's our recommendation, but if you have thoughts on that, and we can poll the members and have a formal vote next time, but.
Yeah, I mean, I personally have thoughts on that, just because I would be coming all the way from San Isidro. Or if I can prevent it. I mean, it really does depend on the time. If it's an AM meeting, then that would be the first thing that I would do. So I wouldn't be coming from San Isidro, I would be coming from downtownish, Mount Barrio Logan, right? So that's different. So it really does depend on the time in terms of responding to the location for me.
Got it.
I do highly support the idea of ensuring that we continue to allow the public to engage via teleconference. I think it makes it more accessible. So yes to that. Other members, thoughts?
Well, I think the location of Scripps Ranch is central, Mayor Sanchez coming from Oceanside and you coming from San Isidro is probably a central location in Scripps Ranch. So I have no problem. I'm in North Park, so it's convenient for me. And I also support continuing the hybrid option for the public. And I also support the bi-monthly schedule, April, July, September, November. So that's my vote.
Member Schultz, any thoughts?
Well, I concur with location. Central part of our region would be great. My other concern is it was mentioned that we may use OWL. I'm not familiar with that in terms of the public participating. So I'm not sure if that is the best choice. I don't know if we can continue with Zoom, since that's a program that people are more familiar with these days, if that's an option.
I think my understanding is that the OWL connects to Zoom. The OWL is a camera and microphone system that allows us to project, everyone that's sitting in the room and be able to connect with people that are connecting by Zoom. But I would defer to the clerk because she's the one who's been checking all this out.
That is absolutely correct.
So it would still be a Zoom connection for members of the public membership.
That's fine. And just a little worried that sometimes our camera may not capture enough of our members' faces, but we can play with that and see if that works well. If not, individual connections by the board members, so the public can see us and hear us better, would be good.
If I may, Chair
Yes, go ahead.
Gomez, we have tested the OWL. It does work well in that particular conference room. However, if for some reason it did not, we do have a second option, which is to use a web camera and have that set up for more of a long shot of the room. So either way it goes, the public should be able to see what's going on in the room. And if they can't for some reason on their end, they definitely will be able to hear it.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So it looks like our APCD staff is on it and they're testing the technology to ensure that we're set up once we start gathering in person. So, but I think the intention is that we are going to continue making it accessible for the public and do everything that requires to allow that, right?
Yep. Yes, absolutely.
Great. Appreciate it. So it sounds like the location works and we'll just make sure that it works for everybody in terms of date and time. So. Okay. So no motion needed. We will go ahead and move to the 2023 legislative program.
And just to confirm, there's no vote needed for the months and the location.
Are we continuing this item to the next meeting? Because
Is this right? Is this a continuance, or are we tabling this to later in this meeting, or are we continuing this to the next planning and policy committee meeting?
I think we're going to continue it. I think staff is going to follow up to try to figure out when we're going to be meeting for the next meeting to decide on dates.
On dates and time and
Permanent
location.
date and time. Mm-hmm.
Okay, if we continue, then we'll need to have a vote to continue this item. And if we like, just for good practice, we can also include in that motion that those meetings will be held on April, July, September, and November of 2023 at the APCD headquarters, and the dates and times will be continued to the next scheduled meeting of the Planning and Policy Committee meeting in April.
Okay. Is there a motion for everything that the clerk has stated?
I'll second it.
Alrighty. We'll go ahead and take a vote.
We'll have Chair Gomez, is it okay if you second the motion? Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Member Bush, Member Sanchez, Member Shu,
Aye.
Vice Chair Medina,
Aye.
and Chair Gomez.
Yes.
Thank you. With members Bush and Sanchez absent, that motion passes with those board members who are present voting aye, continuing this item to the April 2023 Planning and Policy Committee meeting.
Excellent. Thank you for that. So now we will go ahead and take the 2023 legislative program. Go ahead and turn it to the clerk for instructions for public testimony.
Thank you, Chair Gomez. I would ask any member of the public that wishes to address the committee on this item to please dial into the conference line using the instructions that are provided to you on the screen. You may also indicate that you wish to speak on this item by using the raise hand feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen or by pressing *9 now. Your testimony will be heard at the conclusion of any staff presentation.
Thank you for that. And I'll go ahead and turn it over to staff.
Great, thank you, Chair Gomez. So the legislative program that was in your materials is a draft that we would like to get the committee to review today. And the structure of the program is modeled after the legislative program that was done within the County of San Diego, and APCD, before it split out from the county, used to be folded up into the legislative program for the county as a whole. And so what it does is it separates our legislative items into three different types, if you will. One is sponsorship proposals. So that would be for legislation that we are actively sponsoring and working with an author to make changes. We don't have any this year to bring forward. We wanted to get the program in place and then over time be able to operate more on legislation at the state and federal level. The next level are legislative priorities. And what we've done here is described several that we are familiar with. We've been contacted by other districts through CAPCOA, the California Air Pollution Control Officers Association, or there is a description of legislation that is currently being considered at the federal level that would be modeled after our PAIR program with air filters and monitors in the Portside community. And then the third section are the legislative policy guidelines. And these are general guidelines that would provide direction to staff as to positions to take on legislation that may or may not come forward in a given year. And so the goal would be to review this program annually, to update it with the board's direction for policy. And so this is a draft for your consideration and possible forwarding to the full governing board for approval at their meeting in March. And so I wanted to just briefly mention the legislative priorities. If we could go back to that for a second. There are three that I'd like to highlight for you that are going on at the state level. One is related to Department of Motor Vehicle fees. And as you're probably aware, the district currently collects $4 for every registered vehicle in the County of San Diego. And that number has not gone up in several years. And in state law, there is no CPI adjustment for those fees. So it's stayed at this very static level. And so there is legislation that's being considered right now. It's only a spot bill at this point. We do not have any language we have not seen language for it, but the concept is that state law would be amended to increase those fees, potentially up to $8, and that fee would be assessed across the state, that the local board would not need to request to add those fees onto the registration, but that would be done at the state level. And so what we are asking or suggesting as a position is to support that in concept, because that would provide a lot of additional funding into our programs that we could use for projects to reduce motor vehicle emissions. The next one is a goods movement related port cargo fee. And again, this is one that is a spot bill at this point. We've heard discussions about, and this one would be a fee attached to the shipment of containers into our local ports. It would be statewide, and that funding would again be used to support emission reduction projects, especially targeted in those communities. So again, what we're requesting is supporting concept of that proposal. And then the last one has been introduced, and there is language out. It's AB 953 that would expand an existing program that exists in the areas of the Bay Area, Ventura, and Santa Barbara counties for vessel speed reduction. And it requires shipping vessels to reduce their speed to 10 knots in designated areas, and for two reasons. One is it does reduce air pollution considerably from these vessels. The other is that it also reduces whale strikes. And so there is a program in the communities that I mentioned that is called Blue Whales. What is it? I'm sorry, I got the name wrong. But it's designed to both look at the air quality as well as the reduced impacts to wildlife. And so the concept for this bill is to also expand this program to San Diego and to North Coast so that it would cover the entire California coastline. And we think there would be some pretty significant emission reduction benefits locally, as well as, again, those reduced impacts to migrating whales. And there's a potential that funding incentives, this is a voluntary program, but funding incentives have been added in the districts where it's currently in existence. It's possible that could happen here as well. There might be potential for either state funding or federal funding in order to be able to support the program. And you may be aware that the Port of San Diego currently does have a vessel speed reduction program that is voluntary. This would go beyond that in some respects because it would require a lower speed. The port program requires a 12-knot speed from shipping vessels and a 15-knot speed from cruise ships. So this would require a 10-knot speed in order to be, it's voluntary, but in order to be part of the program, it's a 10-knot speed. And so those are the ones that I just wanted to highlight. I mentioned already the federal legislative priority that we've identified, which is the Cleaner Air Spaces Act. That legislation's not been introduced yet, but it is designed to, it's modeled after our local PAIR program. So shout outs to our staff that have been working so hard on that program. And EHC has been contracting with us on that program. It's done a terrific job. It's gotten the attention of folks at the federal level, and they have built this legislation in part off of that. And it's designed to provide incentives for folks to set up clean air shelters and provide filters and monitors to support local clean air spaces in the event of wildfire. So that's my summary. I don't know if you have questions. Happy to answer any questions or delve into more detail or discuss the guidelines as well. But again, this is a draft, and the request from staff today is that you approve this to send to the governing board for their consideration.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. We're gonna go ahead. I'll ask the clerk if there are any members of the public that wish to address the committee on this item before I call on committee members.
Thank you, Chair Gomez. We have 2 requests to speak. I see Nicholas Paul and Vanessa Forsyth. You will have 3 minutes to address the board. Please begin by stating your name for the record. I would also ask that you self-regulate your time and that you mute your live stream prior to speaking. Mr. Baul, you may begin when you're ready.
Hello, members. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. So yeah, my name is Nicolas Paul. I'm the air quality advocate at the Environmental Health Coalition. I just wanted to provide a quick comment. In EHC supports and concept, all the items listed as legislative priorities for 2023. All of the state and federal legislative priorities seem to be just great to improve air quality in our communities. And our organization, as these policies continue to develop over the year, we will be reviewing and giving our official endorsement if it kind of passes that review. One thing that I wanted to elevate that I didn't see explicitly written in the state priority list is like an explicit mention on state budget advocacy for our AB 617 for AB 617 funding. And I wanted to put that out there to see if it was possible to make that an explicit, I guess, priority for this body moving forward. Our AB 617 communities are the lowest funded per community in the state. And so, I wanted to elevate that as a priority. EHC is more than happy to support in any kind of state budget advocacy that this body plans on organizing in the near future. And I'm sure, both the CSCs and in the border and in the port side would be more than willing to support as well. But I wanted to elevate that and see if we can possibly make that, include that as one of our state priorities moving forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Our next caller is Vanessa Forsyth. You may begin when you are ready. You will have 3 minutes to address the board.
Hi, my name is Vanessa Forsyth, and I am with Clean Earth for Kids. And again, support what has been presented in terms of legislation for the coming year. Also would agree that we need to have better funding for the 617. And also would like the board to address in the future, whenever, wood smoke, because we have wood fires on beaches that are burning, and it's kind of seems like a recreational thing. Also smoke in the homes when people build fires, that is letting off a lot of toxic substances that can lead to acute and chronic respiratory and cardiac problems. So we really need to get to the point where we're not actually fostering these wood burning happening on the beaches and even in homes, for people to aware that toxic substances are being released and that's impacting their health. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last caller is Suzanne Hume.
Hi, and thank you so much. Absolutely. This is Suzanne Hume with cleanearthforkids.org. Thank you to the important work by Vanessa Forsyth and California Nurses for Environmental Health and Justice. Absolutely, Clean Earth for Kids supports the legislative priorities that have been outlined here, and we have additional recommendations that we'll be sending in as well. We would like to also publicly thank EHC and the important work that's going on. We absolutely agree with the state budget priorities, 617 communities, etc. And also, of course, supporting the comment by Vanessa Forsyth about wood burning and wood smoke, and we will have a public comment additionally. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you. That concludes public testimony on this item.
Thank you. Member Medina?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we had, I'd first like to thank the public commenters for their suggestions and for their support to the program. And I think we need to take those very carefully into consideration. I had a couple of questions about the state priorities. One is in the vessel speed reduction. I was just wondering, what would APCD support look like for something like that? Are we able to provide data on how the program has worked in San Diego with the Port District's voluntary program? Or how does that support manifest itself in this AB 953? I'll ask that first, and then I'll go to my second question.
So we've been asked by the sponsors of the bill to see if we would be comfortable being a co-sponsor. So that's something that we could consider to do, and work actually on the language with the author. We the port does have data on its website about the impacts from its program. And I know that that's been something that they have incorporated into their marine clean air strategy as well. And so there are really substantial reductions in NOx and in GHGs that come from these slower speeds. And they have shown, relatively good compliance, well, not compliance, but relatively good participation in the program from shippers so far. And initial conversations with the port, they've indicated potential support for the legislation. That was before anything had come out and they had actually seen it, but they made it sound like they were hoping to see something with funding attached, because I think the more that you can provide a financial incentive to shippers, the more likely they're going to participate in the program. So, for the 2022 calendar year, the port was estimating that they had about 91% participation in the program within 20 nautical miles. They have a 20 nautical mile threshold and a 40 nautical mile threshold, and 67% in that 40 nautical mile. So they do have pretty good participation. We would hope that this program would go beyond what they're already doing by, again, lowering that speed just a bit more, and then hoping to attract some, financial incentives, either from, potentially federal funding, potentially state, though we're not hearing great news out of the state on their budget. And we could also, look to see if there's any local sources we might be able to draw from, or even a supplemental environmental project or something along that line.
Great, thank you.
At this time, I will say the legislation only expands the program across the state. It does not include funding. So this is kind of the first step. It would at least have the program here. And then there would be, the potential down the road for funding to be added.
Yeah, thank you. The other question has to do with the CASA program, and that's more to express a concern and maybe suggest or request that APCD do some research on that matter. I'm afraid that we're starting to use in-home air filtration systems, kind of a little bit of a crutch to just say, okay, yeah, put this room filter in and you'll be okay. As an industrial hygienist, I have some reservations as to how efficient they are for a whole home approach, and also what kind of contaminants those filters can work against. So I was hoping that in our support of this priority, that we would be able to provide some data that shows that these really are effective, and also their limitations, so that the public understands that they're not a solution. They're not the same thing as lowering the pollution burden that they're exposed to when they step outside. So what can you tell me about that, or any work that has been done by the district, or maybe research in the academic community that can address that question?
So at this time, what we're hearing, and I'm seeing some of our staff are present here that may be able to address your questions in more detail, but just overall, what we're hearing so far is anecdotal evidence of folks that, for example, need less medication because they're able to use these filters. We absolutely agree that this is not a substitute for reducing pollution in our communities. This is not a either or, it's a yes and from our perspective. And the CASA bill is designed to address, to provide that extra resource for purposes of wildfires. So it's targeted to those instances when there, may be an exceptional event type of situation that is just beyond the norm. But for us, we're quite clear that this is, while we're hearing anecdotal evidence of folks saying that they're benefiting from these filters, that this is not the end solution. This is one potential step. And I see Mike has come on.
Yeah, Paul, I'll just add, as part of the PAIR program, a component of that will be to have some of that research done. And I think we're working with consultants to formalize what that's going to look like, to try to get some of that more technical scientific data back from the community and the monitors that we've paired up with the air filtration systems to sort of see what the effect is. So the hope is, once we get all that data back, we'll be able to have some hard scientific evidence to sort of, do exactly what you're suggesting, Vice Chair Medina. And again, just as Paula stated, the specific CASA program is aimed at providing safe spaces during wildfire events, which is, a little bit different than, the PAIR program that we put together. So, but yeah, point well taken. And I think we agree that, it's not the solution. The solution is trying to address these things at the source wherever we can.
Right. And I do support the clean spaces too. So that's good. Thank you for the clarification, Mike.
The other comment I would make is we have been approached by researchers at UCSD in their School of Public Health that would like to add a health component to the research if we decide to, if we can, move on to the next phase of the program in other communities. And so they've approached us about adding a public health research component to it as well. So something we would want to talk about with our community partners and we could bring back to this committee if that looks like it's going to move forward.
Right. Thank you. Just to conclude, I would support making a recommendation to the larger board to move this item forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Shu, do you have any comments or questions?
I don't have any comments at this time. I do want to make note, though, that the whales do go across our region of the state as well. So I think I'm in support of supporting that legislation, expanding the speed limit as well as the benefits of lower pollution in our region. I'm also very supportive of bringing up to date the car registration fees. I think that's something that is very important since that would provide some additional funding for us to address the largest source of pollution in our region and much of the state. So with that, I'm very encouraged by our discussion and hope we can move this on to the full board.
Thank you, Member Shu. I'm taking that as a second.
Yes.
Great, thank you so much. I too want to express my appreciation to staff for doing the work and bringing a proposal for today's discussion. I do have a couple questions, super supportive of what's in front of us right now. I do want to make sure that we are responding to some of the comments of our public that have shared. I do want to incorporate, I just want to be clear if it is or if it isn't, but at the moment, I'm not sure if we are incorporating our engagement during the state budget to support allocations for the AB 617 communities. Is that something that it has been added already, or?
So that is currently reflected in the guidelines under funding. It's number 9 on the list for funding. Certainly the committee or the board could decide they want to elevate that to a priority. Generally, the way we've listed the priorities out are ones that we're aware of legislation that's moving forward. The statement for funding is support state legislation or administrative action that provides equitable and continued funding for AB 617. So, and we are obviously continuing our efforts in the meantime as well. So it's in there as a guideline. It's not in as a priority. We're not aware of legislation at this time. Well, I'm looking at my council. There may be legislation coming forward that would expand funding on the administrative side for community steering committees. So it wouldn't go directly to districts, but it would be additional funding to support the efforts of the community steering committees. So that's a long way of saying if the board wanted to move that into the priority section, I think there's certainly the opportunity to do that, or if the committee wanted to suggest that for the draft that goes to the board.
I would want to make that a suggestion, pulling it out and calling it, just because I do think that it's a major issue, and although we are we're responding to current legislative ideas, they come from somewhere, right? So maybe down the line, if it's not being produced in such a way, perhaps something that we would consider pushing, and so just to elevate it as a priority.
And I will say on that note, just the good news is that we have been informed by CARB that there is additional funding that's going to be coming to us for the border community.
Nice.
It is one-time funding, but we're hoping that we can expand upon that over time. So there is good news on that front. So
that's great.
We would expect to see that in the coming fiscal year.
Okay. And then my overall question is more on format. So currently, I know that before under the county, county had and still has infrastructure in place in terms of they can put more boots in the ground on either through consultants or through staff to really lobby on behalf of for their agenda. I can't recall, maybe Paul, if you can remind me, do we have a staffer that is dedicated to do government affairs in behalf of APCD? Or is
not? So far that's come to me. Vera, our council, has been assisting me with that. And we are part of the CAPCOA legislative committee. And so we have been coordinating with CAPCOA on some of those items, but we do not have dedicated staff for that. So one option that I'm going to be kind of talking about with staff and our budget folks is potential for
that's where I'm going.
Yeah, that's what I
that's that's where I'm going. If we're not, I mean, this is great, and I'm super appreciative that we're formulating our own proposal and our own agenda in which we're going to be adding our support or not. But I also think that if we are going to be serious, and we should, we need to put resources behind and really equip APCD to be able to do more than just adding our name, right? And that takes resources, and that's going to dedicate a team or a person at least minimally to be able to be successful to carry that. So I'm hoping that, and this is for board members, as we start engaging and developing our budget, we can think about that, because I do think that creates results for our region. So yeah. And then the other piece that I wanted to bring up was more on the going back to the filtration. I appreciate comments out from Vice Chair Medina, and I also agree on I'm hoping that we don't get into this pattern of this is the solution, and really let go of reducing the actual symptom, which is the pollution itself, right? But during the conversation, one thing that dawned on me is, because I remember right now, if you remind me, right now the language is the language is there, right, for this one, or not yet?
It's in the legislative priorities section, because we're anticipating that this legislation would be introduced.
Okay, so maybe as the legislative gets crafted, and I know that you start with the template and the changes as it evolves, right? Until it gets finalized and hopefully gets adopted and supportive. But one thing that really comes to mind is, especially right now in the moment that we are living in, where our unsheltered folks continue to increase, and they don't have the luxury of having shelter, right? So they might be dependent during these wildfire seasons to go to a place of emergency. I don't know how those emergency centers are, if they're well equipped from an air quality perspective. So although I appreciate the focus on residential, I don't know if this expands to that as well to ensure that we are equipping and upgrading our emergency hub places to be ready for some of these, be resilient, right?
Mhm. I see Nick Cormier has come on and he may be able to address that for you.
Yeah, thank you, Paula. Yes, Chair Gomez, I think in my read, if I recall correctly, in the language in the CASA Act that's been put out there, that one of the additional components for anybody who would receive funding in that program, seemingly from EPA, would be that they also set up like a publicly facing center. So it would also, it's kind of two components. It would be also a residential focus, but there would be the additional component of having a public center available for people who may not, have access to one in their home. So that's where it does differ a little bit from our existing PAIR program.
And I do appreciate your comment about unsheltered persons. And I think that maybe, we could pass that comment on to the author to say that, to encourage that there's, in a wildfire, obviously, if there's a ability for people to take access in these shelters, that they also are coordinating with folks that would, be providing the resources for them as well. So that's certainly a comment that we can bring forward.
Okay, appreciate that. So I don't have anything else. I think I really very grateful to be having this discourse. So with that, we do have a motion by Vice Chair Medina, second by Member Shu. Let's take a vote.
Thank you, Chair Gomez. Member Bush, Member Sanchez, Member Shu.
Aye.
Vice Chair Medina.
Aye.
Chair Gomez.
Yes.
Thank you. With members Bush and Sanchez absent, that motion passes with all board members who are present voting aye.
Excellent. Thank you. So with that, we will move now to an informational only item, which is the strategic plan. I'll call on the clerk to provide public testimony instructions. And then after that, turn it over to staff.
Thank you, Chair Gomez. I would ask any members of the public that wish to address the committee on this item to please dial into the conference line now using the instructions provided on the screen. You may also indicate that you wish to speak on this item by using the raise hand feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen or by pressing *9 now. Your testimony will be heard at the conclusion of any staff presentation.
Go ahead and turn it over to staff.
Great. I'm going to turn it over to Mike Watt, who can give us an update on this one.
Sure, I'll just give you this should be a quick, brief update. As we discussed, I think previously, we've been working with the county's Department of Purchasing and Contracting to put out a request for proposals for contractor support to help us with the strategic planning process. We're very close to the finish line on that. We've made a selection of a consultant and working with the county's Department of Purchasing and Contracting to finalize that agreement and hope to have that in place here within the next couple weeks. Then I think the game plan from there would be to meet with them, go over timing and schedules for what they recommend based on what our suggestions were in the proposal, and then try to have a discussion, probably starting with this group, hoping for kind of an April timeframe, if things work out well, and then based on that discussion and the input from our consultant team, then bringing that discussion to the larger board, hopefully in May or June, depending on how the time frame plays out. So we're getting close. We're excited about the selection. Got to get the final signatures on everything and T's crossed and I's dotted, but we hope to have that team in place, like I said, over the course of the next couple weeks.
And the thinking there is that perhaps at that April meeting of this group, that maybe that could be, we might check for a longer meeting to have more time for strategic planning and, maybe a 3, afternoon meeting in person to be able to do that with a consultant. So more to come on that, but we're hoping that that timing will work well.
Great, thank you. Thank you for that. It's exciting. Well, I'll ask the clerk to see if there's any public comment on this item.
Thank you, Chair Gomez. I would ask again if there are any members on the teleconference or virtual line that would wish to address the committee on this item to please raise your hand at this time by pressing *9 or using the raise hand feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Seeing no hands raised, there are no members of the public wishing to address the committee on this item.
Great. And once again, for committee members, this is just an informational item, so no need for a motion. But if you have any questions or comments, I welcome them. So I don't know if there are any comments from committee members. Not hearing any. We are all excited about strategic planning. I know that it's an important process. It takes a lot, but at the same time, the outcome is very critical. So I'm looking forward to that once we get there. So it's excellent. Thank you. I have no comments either. So with that, we will move to our next discussion. Also, once again, this is not a discussion only item. No need for a motion. The item is to propose the National Ambient Air Quality Standards update for PM 2.5. I will turn it over to our clerk for instructions to the public and how to give testimony if need be.
Thank you, Chair Gomez. I would ask any member of the public that wishes to address the committee on this item to please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that are provided on the screen. You may also indicate that you wish to speak on this item by using the raise hand feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen or by pressing *9 now. Your testimony will be heard at the conclusion of any staff presentation.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to staff.
Thank you, Chair Gomez. Just a quick overview here, and then I'm going to turn it over to our subject matter experts on this. But this is just an item to provide an update on the EPA's proposal to amend the PM 2.5 standard, National Ambient Air Quality Standard. And currently they are, there is a public comment period open for this. And so we wanted to bring it to this committee and have a discussion. So with that, I will turn it over to Kathy Keehan.
Hello, thank you, everyone. I'm going to see if I can make technology work here and try and share my screen. I have a little brief PowerPoint presentation. Oops. Okay, maybe not. It says the host has disabled participant screen sharing.
Give me just a minute, Kathy. Let me see if I can.
Okay there. As Paula said, we are going to have a discussion today about the proposed new NAAQS revision for particulate matter PM 2.5. It's under consideration now by EPA, and today's presentation, assuming we'll get to see it, is going to have a little bit of an overview of the proposed changes, a little bit of timeline so we can figure out what will be happening when, and then some implications for the district about what that will mean for our work here in San Diego.
Kathy, go ahead and try again.
Let's try. Oh, look at that. All right, let's see. Let me do this. Okay, I'm screen sharing. We'll see if it will let me do slideshow. Oh, good grief. There we go. All right, can you all see that? All right, yay technology. Okay, Let's see if I can move slides. As I mentioned, we're going to do an overview, a timeline, and some planning implications for that. Okay. So just a quick overview of what is actually being proposed. On January 6th, the EPA proposed to revise the standard from its current annual level of 12 micrograms per cubic meter to somewhere within the range of 9 to 10 micrograms per cubic meter. The EPA is considering changing the standard to a lower value, somewhere between 9 and 10. They're also proposing changes to the air quality index. As a result of that, that's the indicator that the public uses to be able to tell whether air quality is good or moderate in our region right now, and some changes to the monitoring requirements for the standard. They're not proposing to change the secondary annual PM 2.5 standard or the primary and secondary 24-hour standards or the primary and secondary PM 10 standards. So this is a very specific proposal just to change the annual standard for PM 2.5. Our current design value, for those of you who are keeping score at home, is 9.6 micrograms per cubic meter. So we meet the current standard of 12. So a little bit about why EPA is considering the revision. They had, back in December of 2020, they had decided to retain the 12 microgram per cubic meter standard, but they've looked at the available scientific evidence and the technical information, and they're proposing at this time to lower the standard because they feel that the current standard may not be adequate to protect public health and welfare. So under their obligations under the Clean Air Act is they should protect public health with an adequate margin of safety. And so they're proposing this standard change. They evaluate it through the EPA's Clean Air Scientific Advisory Committee. There are 22 members of that committee from all around the country, scientists mostly who work on that. And so they've done a review of that and proposed this, standard change. They have not recommended a level yet of what they think the new standard should be. Some people on the committee are comfortable with a lower standard, a smaller number, 8 to 10. Some people on the committee are supportive of a higher 10 to 12 kind of range. There does seem to be general support across the board for that 10 micrograms per cubic meter number, but they've not made a determination yet. It could be higher, it could be lower. If we do adopt a new standard nationally, there will be some expected benefits, obviously, from that change in the standard. It would be twofold. Nationwide, there'd be an expected decrease in premature deaths, a decrease in lost work days, an increase in public health benefits by the adoption of the standard. It would also advance environmental justice. We know that people who live in environmental justice communities are disproportionately affected by particulate matter pollution. And so by revising the standard, that would provide a benefit for those environmental justice communities as well. We thought we'd talk a little bit. I'm sorry for the busyness of this slide. There's a lot of data, but we wanted to go over a little bit about where PM 2.5 comes from in San Diego County. Majority of the PM 2.5 is created from area-wide sources, things like construction and demolition, residential fuel combustion, cooking, and paved road dust. There are also mobile and stationary sources of particulate matter, including our on-road light-duty vehicles, aircraft, for example, in the mobile source categories. For stationary sources, it's industrial processes and landfills tend to be the biggest sources of particulate matter for stationary sources. Part of the proposed changes also affect our monitoring and our air quality network designations. So they're proposing to revise the network designation design criteria to include environmental justice and monitoring for at-risk communities as part of this proposal. They're also proposing changes to the air quality index to more accurately reflect the standard if it would be revised. So currently we're designated as a moderate AQI value if the region meets the current standard of 12. That would change as they move the standard down. They would move that guideline as well. So right now we're in the middle of a public comment period. The EPA is accepting public comments on the proposed action through March 28th. So if any of you would like to propose a comment, you could do it through the docket there at EPA. Once the EPA has received the comments, they'll go back and make a determination, and that's expected to happen sometime this year in 2023. After that, if the EPA does promulgate a new standard, they'll have 2 years to designate regions either in attainment or not in attainment of that new standard. And then within 3 years of adopting the standard, our state level would be required to have the framework revisions in place for the state implementation plans to meet that new standard. Locally, we would have 18 months after the region is designated. If the region is designated as a non-attainment area, which we don't know whether we will or not at this point, but if we were to be designated non-attainment, we would have 18 months after that designation to provide an implementation plan to show how the region will meet that new standard. And then if the region were designated as a moderate attainment area, we would have 6 years after the designation date to actually meet the standard. So a little bit on what we think will happen if as I mentioned earlier, they're kind of considering numbers between 9 and 10 micrograms per cubic meter as the potential new standard. This map, again, kind of hard to read, but you could see that San Diego is light green on this map. And what that means is that EPA thinks that we would be able to meet a 10 microgram standard right now. We would not be able to meet a 9 microgram standard right now. And then the same thing would be the case in 2032, where we would be expected to be able to meet a 10 microgram per cubic meter standard. We would not be able to meet a 9 microgram standard without some potential actions. This is kind of the same data, but in a tabular form. Just a reminder that the proposal itself and the standard itself would not make any attainment, non-attainment designations. They would just set the standard, and then EPA would go to work determining what regions would meet and not meet that standard, and that would take a while. So what happens if we're designated as non-attainment? It triggers a lot of actions on the air district's part. We would need to create an implementation plan, and that would require modeling to determine how the local, state, and federal regulations will impact particulate matter levels over time. Typically, we rely on the state or on other large districts to help us with that work, at least with our ozone modeling. And so we would probably be relying on those folks to help us again. But there's a risk that we may need to do that on our own. So something for us to be considering as we move forward. The implementation plan would also require the district to evaluate our existing rules to make sure that they meet particulate reasonably available control technology levels and analyze rules from other districts. That would be a significant amount of work on our part to do that. So that would be definitely something that we would need to incorporate into our work plan for coming years as that would happen. There would have implications for the monitoring of PM and reporting those results, and that's also potentially would take some additional resources from our monitoring team. All in all, we think that the adoption of a new standard, and if we were designated as non-attainment for that standard, would have a significant impact on our budgeting and strategic planning efforts that we'll need to plan for moving forward. So given that, and given the information that we have, the staff has put together a draft set of themes for a comment letter on this. We'd like to hear your feedback on if we've got the themes correct and if we should or shouldn't include them in a potential comment letter. We'd start with a statement of support for the new standard and the associated health benefits that would accompany it. We would encourage the idea of financial investments to help the region reduce emissions from sources that we cannot control ourselves. With respect to environmental justice, we'd highlight the good work already taking place on our portside and international border communities for planning to make sure that we're well positioned to take advantage of any financial investments that would come as a result of this. We would note that the potential revised NACs to 10 microgram per cubic meter supported by all of the committee members. We would encourage EPA to continue further studies to analyze limits potentially lower than 10 micrograms per cubic meter and potential changes to the short-term or 24-hour standards. We'd ask EPA to consider the impacts of the monitoring change as if they change the standard and work with the districts to accommodate those changes. We know that there would be some changes involved there. We would ask for consideration of background PM levels be considered during the designation process. We know that San Diego experiences significant particulate matter from South Coast and from Mexico, and that impacts our ability to meet that new standard. And then finally, we'd ask EPA to consider further regulation of sources regulated by the federal government, such as airplanes and rail, to enable all areas to potentially meet that new standard. So that's the last slide for this presentation. I'd like to open up the floor to if you have any questions or discussions, and maybe stop sharing my screen so I could actually see you.
Thank you for that. We will go ahead and open any comments from the public. I'll call the clerk to see if there's any comments from public on this item.
Thank you, Chair Gomez. We have 3 members of the public that wish to address the board on this item. I will call the members of the public by their name. You will have 3 minutes to address the board. Please begin by stating your name for the record. I'd ask that you self-regulate your time and that you please mute your live stream prior to speaking. Our first speaker is Vanessa Forsyth. Please begin by stating your name for the record. Thank you.
Yes, I am Vanessa Forsyth, and interestingly, I was speaking to some legislative aides on the Hill regarding this. You know, it is something that's revised at intervals. To note, the 2020 standard actually didn't change what was in place from 2015. So we really do need to move forward in terms of the amount of particulate matter, the requirements. And yes, San Diego is better than some places in this part of California, but and we are impacted by other parts, but I really think we should go for what now is 12 units per microgram to at least a range of 8 to 10. I would say below 10, or looking to go to 8 within a certain period of time ahead of time, you know, as a goal, because particulate matter is one that is very severe in terms of its impact, respiratory, cardiac, and again, that we also consider it in terms of the environmental justice issue. Those people who live close to the transfer stations, cross highways, they're the most impacted by this particulate matter, and we really need to address it and go with what the scientists recommend. So I would urge you in your letter, to encourage 8 to 10. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Suzanne Hume.
Hi, my name is Suzanne Hume. I'm the Educational Director and founder of CleanEarthForKids.org. Clean Earth for Kids supports the COMET themes of the San Diego Air Pollution Control District to save lives. San Diego County must push forward and ask the EPA to adopt the World Health Air Quality Guidelines 2022, which is 5 or less micrograms of PM 2.5. We can no longer accept 8, as was previously stated, because and is being talked about by the Lung Association, by the American Lung Association, because we must adopt the World Health Air Quality Guidelines 2022 for PM 2.5, because there's no safe level of PM 2.5. PM 2.5 is breathed in through the nose, inflames the brain, increases stillbirth, pre-birth, low birth weight babies. The science is all there. You can see Dr. Paul Fowler's presentation on our Team 3 Clean Air Saves Lives page, talking about the increase of stillbirths. Every 10 micrograms per cubic meter that you increase 2.5. So every single microgram is important. And we absolutely can get to 5, and here is how. From your own records, wood smoke, as was previously called, household combustion, something like that. I need to remember the words that Kathy said. Anyhow, but it's wood smoke. From your own records, this is a huge, large percentage of this. And the way that we can meet this is by educating the public. Radio commercials, print ads, let people know that burning wood isn't a fun, cozy activity, but it actually harms your life. It harms children's development and their learning. We can also put things in place, absolutely, such as, up north, as South Coast and others, air pollution control districts are doing to curtail wood smoke. We can pass these policies. We can do this. We need to think about our children and their future, and 5 or less. Follow the World Health Organization. Follow the science. As you know, microfine particles called PM are the worst pollution on the planet. PM 2.5 is especially dangerous. These particles, 2.5 microns or smaller, inflame the brain, responsible for premature deaths every year. PM, as you know, irritates the lungs. Wood smoke increases the serious health outcomes. So as you know, wood smoke can cause an asthma attack, heart attack, or stroke on the spot. So we need to take action on this right now, and we can by thinking about our policies, by educating the public and going for this. 8 is not enough. 9 or 10, are too high. We really need to go for 5 or less, follow the scientists, listen to the World Health Organization, and really protect our people. Thank you so much from CleanEarthForKids.org.
Thank you. Our last speaker is John Bordoff.
Good afternoon. My name is John Bodorf with CleanEarthForKids.org. It is very important to reduce our PM levels. Excuse me, the World Health Organization calls for 5 micrograms per cubic meter or less, and your comment letter needs to support the WHO standard. Particulate matter is incredibly small particles of air in our air. PM 2.5 gets into the lungs and bloodstreams and can cross the blood-brain barrier. And research shows that not only does PM irritate the lungs and cause things like asthma and pre-birth and birth defects and heart attacks and cancer, but because it can cross the blood-brain barrier, it can also cause conditions like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and dementia. Particulate matter can cause immediate asthma attacks, heart attacks, and strokes. And if you have a child or a nephew or a cousin or anything who has asthma and has attacks, it's a terrible, terrible thing to watch. Particulate matter from things like wood smoke really hurt our indoor and outdoor air quality. As Suzanne mentioned, a study by Dr. Fowler from the University of Aberdeen showed particulate matter can get into the brain, lungs, and liver of unborn babies. exposure to air pollution during pregnancy increased rates of stillbirth, preterm birth, low-weight babies, and brain development. You can read his study and watch a webinar on the results on our website, Team 3 Clean Air. According to your APCD 2021 Annual Air Quality Report, residential fuel combustion, which is wood burning, is tied with construction demolition as the main source of PM 2.5 in the county. Wood burning dumps almost 3.5 tons of particulate matter into our air every day. Wood smoke also contains nitrogen oxides, carbon monoxide, methane, carbon dioxide, and cancer-causing pollutants like benzene, formaldehyde, acrolein, and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, or PAHs. Burning 10 pounds of wood in 1 hour creates the same cancer-causing PAHs as 6,000 packs of cigarettes. That's like smoking a pack of cigarettes a day for 16 years just by sitting next to a wood fire. And that has to stop. The APCD needs to have programs and incentives to remove existing wood-burning fireplaces and stoves throughout the county, and to work with cities and other agencies to stop wood fireplaces and stoves in new construction. We also ask you to educate the public that wood smoke is a health hazard, and to work on stopping wood fires on all public lands, like beaches and parks, to protect clean air and our health. People with lung problems need to be able to safely go to beaches and parks and even just go outside at night. It is not fair that any child must risk an asthma attack just to go outside. We need to greatly reduce our PM levels regardless of what the EPA standard is in our county. And stopping wood burning is a great way to do that. But again, we absolutely believe that you should recommend to the EPA the WHO standard, which is 5 micrograms per cubic meter or less. Thank you so much from Clean Air for Kids.
Thank you. That concludes public testimony on this item.
Thank you. Are there any comments from committee members? Vice Chair Medina.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Ms. Keehan, for a presentation. The slides went by too fast for me, so I hope that you can put up with my questions, which you may have answered already. I'm just curious, currently does our level of PM 2.5 include accommodation for the transported air pollution that we get, or from Mexico and from LA?
Now, see, you've stumped me your very first question. I'm not sure. I would have to get back to you on that.
All right, I'll keep going then.
Okay.
How would having a change in the annual standard affect CARB or Cal EPA? Do we automatically have to adopt them? And you explained that whole process of state implementation plans and all that. So I guess the answer is yes. But do we have the ability to go lower? Let's say that EPA wanted 10, and in California we wanted 9. Could we do that?
I might not be the best person to answer this. I know that we would need to meet the federal standard, but
we can do
maybe Paula would.
I might ask council to respond to that. CARB does have state air quality standards, and I would assume they could do a similar standard for PM. They already have a statewide PM standard. I would think they could lower it.
I think Paula knows just as much, if not more, than I do. Always is able to answer for me. But yes, that is correct. So under sort of the way that the powers are distributed between the EPA and the state and local jurisdictions, the EPA is able to set these national ambient air quality standards, and this would be one of them. But the state also, because the state generally has what they call police powers, is able to set a standard so long as it's more strict than the federal requirement. So they cannot set one that's less strict, but they can set one that's more strict than the federal requirement if they chose to do so. But we locally were not given the authority to set the standards.
Okay, so we have to abide by whatever CARB decides.
Correct.
Okay. Kathleen, you also explained the adoption schedule. Just for clarification, is the 18 months for local jurisdictions or local district to adopt in case of non-attainment, it's in addition to the 3 years of state adoption, or is it concurrent with those?
An excellent question. And so what would happen is the EPA has 2 years to determine the designations for the various districts. Once the district is designated, it could take as long as 2 years, it may be shorter than that. Once that designation happens, 18 months after that, we would need to submit our plan to attain that standard.
So then, okay, so that would be the local plan.
That's correct.
And then the local plan informs the state plans, or?
It does. It's part of the state plan. The state creates the framework document that talks about the state actions that happen to help meet that plan. And then all of the local plans funnel into our state efforts to meet the standard.
So is it possible then for a local district to begin, whether it's rulemaking or other measures in anticipation of a lower standard to start working towards it before it actually comes into play?
We would certainly need to do that, actually. That the development of that plan requires us to have already looked at those rules and adopted rules that would help us meet the standard. So as soon as the standard is put in place, we would begin looking at what the implications would be for the air district. We wouldn't wait until that,
Okay.
2 years or 18 months.
Yeah, my next question is maybe for Nick or Michael. In Kathleen's slide, what are the area sources? The residential fuel combustion was mentioned, and one of the speakers also just stated that. I'm just curious, how broad is the type of fuel that is considered in that? Are we talking about natural, all the way from natural gas to wood, or is it what is counted as residential fuel combustion? Is my question.
Sure. Thanks, Vice Chair Medina. I can attempt to answer that. So the commenters were correct that residential fuel combustion, the vast majority of it is comprised of wood stoves and fireplaces. There's a couple other sources, including space heating, water heating, to a lesser extent, natural gas cooking. And then there's kind of catch-all categories but all of those subsequent categories are far less than the primary two, which are wood combustion from fireplaces and wood stoves.
I guess I didn't know that we still burned a lot of wood, and I know sometimes my neighbors do, but I thought they were outliers. Okay, well, those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Member Shu, don't know if you have any comments. I'll take the silence as no. And I think Vice Chair Medina got to the questions that I had, so no need to repeat. But
sorry, I was muted. One moment.
Okay. Go ahead, Member Shu.
So I have several comments. One is I want to encourage that we actually push for the EPA to consider the 24-hour measurements and to change that, and for us to strengthen our letter or our comment to do at least 8 units per cubic centimeters, because really that's, I think, the kind of change we need to make, if not encourage that we go even further than that. From what I just heard, it seems that even when these levels are established, these lower levels, that there's still time for people to comply and come up with plans on how to comply. It's not as if we're shutting anything down in an immediate way, but that brings attention to this problem and gives us time to develop a plan to reduce these pollutants and the health effects that they cause. So my inclination is for us to go for at least the 8 parts per cubic centimeter, as well as the 24-hour limit that EPA should consider, and further commenting that the lower they reduce this, the better. Just to strengthen our comment to EPA.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Member Shu. Definitely wanted to make in addition, but Member Shu has added it, so I support it. I do think that the 24 hours makes sense, and I know that's not part of it, but we should at least be on record that if the conversation, hopefully the conversation will evolve, that it can be incorporated, and I think that would be very, if we're doing it for the purposes of health and people, I think it really does come down to the everyday breathing, right? And what people are exposed to in the everyday basis, not an annual basis. So it does make sense that it should evolve to that conversation. Outside of that, thank you for the presentation. We're very thorough and looking forward to a fuller conversation with the rest of the board members. This is not this is just a discussion, so no need for a motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to clarify, we were not planning to bring this to the full board. So yeah, just wanted to clarify that we did want to bring this to your committee as the Planning and Policy Committee, but had not planned to bring this to the full board in March.
Yeah.
But we appreciate the discussion and the, yeah, exactly. And the comments that have been made, and including those of the public. So we'll definitely take those into account.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I believe we now are getting to the non-agenda public comment section. So clerk, please remind folks on how to get in the queue if they have any non-agenda public comment, and let us know if we have any.
Thank you, Chair Gomez. I would ask any members of the public that wish to address the committee under non-agenda public comment to go ahead and use the instructions that I will put on the screen now. Use the instructions provided on the screen. You can also indicate that you wish to speak under non-agenda public comment by using the raise hand feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen, or by pressing *9 now. It looks like we have 3 members of the public that wish to address the board. I will call the members of the public by their names. You will have 3 minutes to address the board. Please self-regulate your time, and please make sure that you mute your live stream before beginning. Our first speaker is John Botorf. You will have 3 minutes to address the board. Please begin by stating your name for the record.
Good afternoon. So my name is John Botorf with CleanEarthForKids.org. I just had a couple of things I wanted to say real quick. One is APCD should address pesticide drift. There is a great bit of agriculture done in the county, and pesticides drift. Pesticides are very, very toxic and are very dangerous to human health. And considering how close people live to a lot of these farms and nurseries throughout the county, people are exposed to pesticides on a very regular basis. Up in North County, there is, in the Oceanside area, there's a lot of farms, and people live within 100 feet of some of these fields, and these are agricultural pesticides. These are very strong, powerful pesticides, many of which are banned in other countries around the world. And that's something that APCD should work with CARB to address, to set lower standards, and basically just not allow these pesticides to be used where people are living. The other thing would be no idling signs. So obviously when people are driving is different, but people, anytime if you look around, you'll see people parked in their cars in a parking lot on their smartphones for long periods of time, just idling their cars. Car exhaust is deadly, as all of you know. Carbon monoxide and a lot of other cancer-causing pollution comes from car exhaust. and people just don't know. We don't live in a very hot or very cold climate. People aren't running their cars because it's 100 degrees out or 10 below zero. They're doing it because, they're not thinking about it. And I think some no idling signs for awareness and programs, radio ads to bring awareness to air pollution, things like wood smoke and idling would be a great way to get our better air. Thank you again from cleanearthforkids.org.
Thank you. Our next public speaker is Suzanne Hume. You have 3 minutes to address the board. Please begin by stating your name for the record.
Thank you. My name is Suzanne Hume. I'm the Educational Director and founder of cleanearthforkids.org. And to build off of John's comment, yes, I started Clean Earth for Kids after being poisoned by pesticide drift. I lived 100 feet away from West Coast tomato growers, which is leasing land from the city of Oceanside in the county of San Diego. Toxic pesticides are used that are banned in other countries that are known lung irritants, known to cause cancer, etc. I'm so pleased, and our organization is so pleased that CARB has taken on pesticide drift. We worked very hard for that, and we're very happy that the California Air Board is doing that, and we would ask you to do the same to educate the public, protect farm workers, protect children, families, the public from toxic pesticides, toxic chemicals that drift, and of course, wood smoke, and educate the public. Our air in San Diego County is in trouble, and we need to do everything possible to not just support legislation like you were speaking of about the EPA. And yes, we need 5 or less PM 2.5, just like the World Health Organization is calling for based on the science. Also, state legislation and good work on ship exhaust, and also, the burning of fossil fuels. We've got to continue to work on that, factories, and let people know about their gas stoves, as was mentioned before, gas fireplaces, and gas-powered lawn equipment. I'll make a quick comment. There must be a budget to let low-income workers know about these programs. Clean Earth for Kids proudly paid for radio commercials that aired on Spanish radio about the harms of gas, leaf blowers and gas equipment. And this was something that we paid for. We have no paid staff. We paid for this. We need your, APCD to step up and pay and help. Again, we have a budget of 0, right? And we're paying for these things, radio ads, print ads, etc. We'd love to partner with you. We have tons of students or interns, volunteers, etc. that can help with art, that can help do these commercials and do these things. That would be so important. So again, your records show that wood smoke, which is residential fuel combustion, is a huge contributor to air pollution in San Diego County. Public land should be accessible to all people, including me, with asthma, lung conditions, cancer, women that are pregnant, children, and seniors. And it's up to you to stop the wood fires at the beaches, because the cities, I'm sorry, the mayor of Oceanside has not stopped the wood smoke. We have had people and the wood fires at the harbor, and sits on the air pollution control district. This is unacceptable. And recently had a program to rekindle fires. So to try to bring in a cultural aspect without talking about the harms of air pollution, about what happens when you burn wood, right? This is unfair to the public. There should be a standard for the people that sit on the air pollution control board. If they are uneducated about that, then they need to be educated about the harms of wood smoke. Please check out our wood smoke page on Clean Earth for Kids Team 3. There's a link. Our students who work.
Ms. Hume, I would ask that you conclude your comments. Your 3 minutes has ended.
Oh, thank you so much. I would just say our students who are working have spent hundreds of hours creating videos and learning how to do animation to bring you the science. And it's the expectation that the Air Board and all members and staff work to reduce air pollution. That is your job. That is what you need to do. And thank you so much for the good things that you are doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next caller is Vanessa Forsyth. I'd ask that you unmute yourself at this time, and please begin by stating your name for the record.
Vanessa Forsyth, and I do agree that we should really get to the 5 units per microgram in terms of particulate matter. But, you know, we have to look ahead in terms of it and to really educate the public. I also strongly agree with what the member Chu said, that they are only addressing the annual PM, the EPA. They really need to address the 24-hour PM. So would encourage you to add that to your letter or whatever recommendation. I haven't participated in one of these before. I am also with the California Nurses for Environmental Health and Justice. You know, we are a group of nurses who are really concerned about how air quality and pesticides, et cetera, are impacting everyone, but particularly the most vulnerable children and older people, as well as those people who work outdoors. And I just wanted to mention another thing is that there are seeds that are implanted with pesticides that are being used and pushed by manufacturers like Monsanto onto farmers to use. And these seeds have the pesticide that goes into the soil, that goes into the water, stays in the plant. When that plant produces seeds, those seeds still contain the pesticide. So it's a cyclic thing that has a big impact, and it is not regulated. I don't even think by the federal government. You know, there is a farm ag bill or ag farm bill coming up. And these are some of the things that we're asking for, as well as more justice and consideration. Collection of health data, as was pointed out, is really important. Information to the public in terms of things like infograms that can be posted in schools, in libraries, shared in ads, so that the public understands the connection between air pollution, pesticides, et cetera, and their individual health. That's really important. So I appreciate all that you've shared and that you've listened to us, and ask you to keep going forward in your strategic plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last public speaker is David R. I would ask that you unmute yourself at this time, and please begin by stating your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to address the board.
Hello, my name is David Ramos. I'm a resident of the Logan Heights and Barrio Logan area. I'm a current resident of the Logan Heights area, and I'm here to talk about, I'm here to advocate for the residential area and air pollution that's regularly affected these areas. With the I-5 freeway adding to the trouble, the Coronado Freeway adding to the issue. It's an ongoing problem that continues to get worse and worse, and I wanted to make sure that there was someone that could address that issue, and just understanding more about what could be done to challenge that issue, because it's been going on for so long and almost nothing has been done to change that. I hope that there is better communication within these meetings so that more residents could understand the value of making these changes possible and having it available to not only in English but in Spanish, because these communities are largely made up of Latino students and parents. So being able to reach out to a larger audience through advertisements and even just online media through social media, because we're so interconnected in these times, it's hard to just stick to one kind of advertisement. Going on different social media platforms would be helpful, alongside advocating this kind of information to college students. I am a 4th year college student, and I wouldn't have known about this opportunity if it weren't for my professors. So just having more information out there to reach out to the public, reach out to students that care about these kind of issues, and locals especially, because they have the biggest impact in the community and have the biggest chance to make change.
Thank you for your comments. That concludes public testimony on this item.
Thank you, everyone, public and members and staff for today's robust meeting. Really appreciate it. And that brings us to an adjournment of our first meeting as a committee. Appreciate everyone. With that, we're concluded. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.